saying all this, he's crying, and Judge Thatcher's crying, his wife is crying, but it's all sentimental because like the next morning, he ends up drunk again. Cause like in the middle of the night, he got thirsty, so, yeah, it was all just a fake thing.
So Pat was playing the judge, but the judge was the one that was sentimental. And I just want you to notice as you read the book, happens a lot, that Mark Twain is making fun of that kind of thing. He's making fun of the fact that being overly emotional weakens us. It makes us do things it makes us maybe hurt other people. It's a violent book, and people do get emotional and hurt other people, but it also makes us easily deceived and tricked. And the judge is one of those guys. And you remember his comment? Anybody remember his comment after he learned this lesson? He was trying to be nice to him. You know, let's do it the easy way. And tears were shed. I appreciate you mentioning that. But what did the judge learn? You remember his comment?
He said like only like a gun will reform.
Some people you can reform at the end of a shotgun. And so he learns his lesson. That's the first real example that we see in the book of the difference in those two things. What sentimentalism, how it approaches things and fails, according to Mark Twain, and how a realist would approach things and succeeds. It's a good start. You want to go next?
Sure. So much to say.
Yes, there is.
I know. I thought it was interesting that Huck said he wanted, I mean, not like directly said he wanted to go to hell, but kind of like insinuated that. And then like when his Miss Watson was like, well, your friend Tom isn't going to heaven, he was like happy about that because he wanted them to be together in hell. And I just thought that was kind of weird because Huck doesn't really seem to think things through like that.
I think we need to get something clear at the beginning. Huck and Jim, as you get to know them, they're not, neither one of them are not smart. They're smart. But they're not educated. So what does that tell you about Huck's education? He actually is a pretty good thinker. And that's something he appreciates and Mark Twain appreciates, but you know something he doesn't know. If he wants to go to hell, based on what Ms. Watson told him about it, who would want to do that? Who would want to do that? Probably somebody doesn't understand it, right? And so you're going to see that a lot. That doesn't mean they're not educated. They actually have a different kind of education, but that's not one of them. There are other things related to that that are useful. Who would like to go? Yeah.
I was just gonna say I thought it was interesting how like back whenever Huck was home, he like there was nothing between him and Jim. Like him and Tom messed with him, but then whenever they met in the woods, like the friendship started to form. But I think since Jim like kept the thing from Huck about seeing his dead father, that'll probably like bring in some lies like ruin it a little later in the book.
That's already happened, right? Okay, I keep forgetting how far you. Yes. Go back and explain what did that add to the book? That Jim kept, and you must have done something
Did he
that.
already figure it out though?
What?
Did Huck already figure it out?
No, Huck doesn't figure it out until he hears about it in the last chapter. That is true, but what are you telling me about Jim?
He was just trying to, he just thought that Huck would leave him if he told him about it, because he wouldn't really have any reason to like not go back home, so.
Yeah, I suppose that could have been a motivation. I don't see it that way. I think he's just a good person. And he doesn't want this young boy to see his father. Of course, we know it, but we didn't know it at the time. But Huck does not know that's his father. But Jim knows it, and you know, that's a good father. He's everything. That's one of those things. Jim becomes everything that Pat never was. Yeah. Okay.
I don't feel like Huck being smart but not educated. I thought it was pretty interesting the way he faked his death, like killing the pig, they go to like houses ransacked.
Right. So why did he do that? Why did he go to that trouble?
Like squandered with.
Yeah, it's really smart. Huck gets in trouble in the book when he tries to, when he's influenced by Tom. Whenever he gets influenced by Tom, he sometimes takes risks that aren't practical. Huck is very practical, but there, and I don't wanna get ahead of us, but there's a good example of him being practical. Yes.
Just like another thing to say about Jim and how he's like kind of like father, can sort of be like a father figure to Huck, is how like when they found like the house that had been like washed ashore and they found like the dead body inside, how Jim was like trying to protect him.
Yeah,
and,
that's
like,
what she was talking about, but are there other ways, since you brought it up? Can you think of other ways that, because there are other ways, that their relationship is mutual, they help each other. We'll come back to, yeah.
I thought it was interesting how everyone in the book was like super superstitious with everything, and I think it added like a lot of contrast to their character because they would like make really smart decisions and they talk about how the smallest thing was a sign of like bad luck, like the snake and like I guess just everyone in that society like putting bread in the water, like filling up dead bodies.
Well, the funny thing about that is it worked. Did you notice that it works? They put the bread in the water to find a dead body. Where did the bread end? Well, not a dead body, the dead body of Huck. Where does that bread end up? Right where Huck is standing. So that it's ironic that something that, are you saying, and if you are, I agree with you, that there's no, I mean, can anybody think of any logical way that would be scientific? Is there any like practical scientific reason why you would do that and it would locate a dead body? I don't either, and yet ironically, and that's the only thing, coincidentally, it does. I want to pursue that later, the superstition thing, because I know there's nobody in here that's superstitious. I mean, you guys are well educated, live in the 21st century. You have phones, you know how to drive, you know, I mean, you guys are cutting edge. I mean, I can't even make my way, I'm still learning how to use a computer, frankly. You guys, you could probably put one together, right? So I know there's nobody here that's superstitious.
I was just gonna go back to the point about how you said that they like would help each other.
Yeah,
When they were on the island and they were, both hungry, they like went fishing and then cooked the fish and shared it.
yeah, absolutely, and in that same context, he has been bitten by the snake, right? Okay, there's some things that happen right before that, but you're right, they do work, help each other together, yes.
I was just gonna say, going off of that, whenever they're looking for Huck, Jim doesn't like spoil anything or doesn't like try to bring him back, so that he understands Huck.
So what do they share? Like,
I guess like,
he's a black man who's a slave, who has a family, is a 14-year-old white boy, who literally has no family now, because his dad's dead, we didn't know it, he didn't know it, but,
I guess like a sense of freedom.
so they're both trying to escape what?
I don't know, like being held, I guess by like the widow.
Yeah, so Huck's trying to escape. Why would he escape her? He's not a slave. Like, I understand why Jim's running away, but why is Huck trying to get away from that? Now, he didn't ask to be kidnapped. He was escaping that, but he was also escaping Ms. Watson and the widow Douglas. Why?
I guess he just didn't like the way that he was living.
The way what?
The way he was living and the way she treated him.
So that it was in a sense a type of slavery for him. Yeah, sure.
That was interesting how Huck and Tom had like different views of like people's ideas. It's like
Yeah.
Tom, like he looked up to like people's ideas.
How do you know that?
In the gang, he used like a bunch of like people's ideas.
Well, he didn't listen to the boys in the game, but what did he listen to?
The authority.
What was the authority for him? Anybody remember what the authority was? Like,
Pirates.
where did he get those ideas? Where would you get it? Where would any of us get those ideas? Yeah,
The books.
in book. So he read the book and he said, if it's in the book, we gotta do it. And so he was very, very conservative in that way. He would do whatever's in the book. Anybody wanna comment on how Huck was not like that? And the whole business about the gang, and it was one of the questions about prayer, about magic lamps, about Moses, all of that. Those things reveal his, like, where is Huck coming from? What's his authority? Yeah.
It's a lot more cynical and skeptical about things like that, because Tom was raised in a house with an aunt who cares for him and a good family, and Huck has been on his own for most of his life, or in a bad situation, where it's been up to him to figure out how he's going to survive. So he's developed a much more slanted worldview about where his first concern is this a good idea? Will this keep me alive?
Yes, so you didn't use the word practical, did you? You could have, because that's what you were describing. He's very pragmatic, very practical, utilitarian. If it works, I'll do it. So how does he apply that? And that's his authority. How does he apply that authority to those things I just mentioned? The gang, the Moses, prayer, the magic lamp. Anybody want to answer that? We call on you, but I don't know if you know the answer. How does he apply what Caroline just said? Practical, skeptical. What do you mean by skeptical?
He doesn't trust things just because they're there.
That's right. He doubts until you prove otherwise. So how does he take that philosophy and apply it? I could ask anybody, right? Think about it, Claire. How does he take that philosophy of, does it work? Is it practical? Is it useful? And if it's not, I'm gonna reject it, and if it is, I'll adopt it.
Well, I know, like, when they were talking about, like, robbing and killing people and stuff, he didn't think that they needed to do all that, like, they just should take what they need, like, even just rob stores and not, like,
Oh, you mean with him and Jim? Yeah, later they developed this philosophy that will borrow. Have any of you ever just taken money from somebody? I mean, I don't think I have. I've always borrowed money from somebody. But what do you usually mean when you ask to borrow something? Now, I tell you one thing. Maybe you don't know where I'm coming from, but even something as small as a pencil, I've noticed that, you know, a lot of Caldwell students will not forget that they borrowed the pencil and they brought it back. But isn't it true that most people, when they borrow something, it usually suggests you're gonna give it back, but most people don't mean that. They're not gonna give it back. What they mean, I want it, I'm gonna keep it, but they use the word borrow to make it better. What they'll do later is, they'll go borrow, that's what they'll call it, food from people's yards, you know, gardens and things. And it's funny how they work that out. It's kind of an ethic that they come up with. They'll only borrow certain foods. Like they won't borrow spinach, they won't borrow persimmons, all the things nobody likes to eat anyway, but they'll borrow the other stuff. Anybody else answer the question is, how does he apply his philosophy of practical, pragmatic, usefulness to those things that I mentioned? Any of it?
So like when he was talking about prayer, he was saying that, he was saying that like, cause Miss Watson had told him that, prayer, like he should forget about himself and like prayer's gonna benefit like other people, and like he should pray about like other people. And he said, well, I mean, I don't really see any advantage in this other than like for other people, so I mean, I'm just gonna drop it.
But at first, she wasn't all that specific. She said, if you pray for something, you'll get it, right? The Bible does say that, doesn't it? Then it kind of, don't you have to pause usually when you get to that point and say, whatever you ask, you'll receive, whatever you seek, you shall find. If you knock, the door will be open, and that just can't be right, because I know I've prayed for, you know, and I haven't gotten them. Well, that was Huck. He said, okay, let me try it out. So he prayed for hooks and lines, and he got the hooks but not the line. And so he completely jettisoned the idea of prayer because it doesn't work by his standard. and it goes back to what we were talking about with Claire about, going to heaven. He really doesn't understand it, but I dare say you and I don't really understand all that much either. You remember the same thing about a magic lamp? That was from Tom. What did he do? Tom said, in the old stories, they go for Aladdin, rub the lamp, and a genie comes out. What does he do? He finds a lamp, he rubs it, nothing happens, he throws it out. And you remember about Moses? He loved the story about Moses until he found out what about Moses? He doesn't put no stock in dead people. So a dead person, again, it's ridiculous, but it's consistent. He consistently does that. Before we go, I said that there's nobody in here is superstitious because of all those other things I said. For instance, I know we have a bunch of athletes here. None of you wear the same clothes, the same shirt, the same shoes, whatever, when you have a game. None of you do that. Like any baseball players here, you never do the same thing before each at bat, do you? You would never change shirts. Nobody has a lucky shirt, right? Tell me about that in 1 minute. I know you're really not superstitious, but what's this business about the lucky shirt? And what is it about 3 times, not 5 times with the foul line? Always the same number? Is that superstition or is there something else going on? Before we go, somebody explain that to me. What's going on with athletes who have these kind of things that they do, always do before a game? Is that superstition?
It's like, it's habitual, so it's like, if you do something good and you remember it,
I understand what you're saying.
yeah, if you do something good and you like continue to do whatever you did before that, it'll like sort of, it can help psychologically.
Have you ever heard of something called muscle memory? I'm not quite sure what it is, but, you know, your body sort of starts to react habitually to something. You keep doing it. So, is it superstition or is it just kind of a good habit? We'll see, tomorrow. Please read for Tuesday. We have less time to get ready.
Thank you.
So make sure you read, yes. I want you to be honest with me, tell me the superstitions that you have. I know you got it.
I don't really have any.
What?
I don't really have any superstitions.
I'm calling it that, but you do have some patterns.
Yeah.
That's my point.
I guess just like free throws.
Yeah, do you not, what's your free throw?
Like throw it twice and then spin it and then throw it one more time.
I go one,
spin
two,
it and then you
three,
dribble one more
and I
time?
spin it, and then one more dribble, that's
Wait.
weird. I feel like the spin's always left.
What about things like the lucky shirt or the lucky shoes?
I don't do
or
that.
But people do.
They
Real
do.
people. Would you call that superstition or is that part of the whole picture of just getting in a groove?
I think it's superstition.
I appreciate your, it is psychological. It is. That can help you, can't it?
Yeah, it does. If you do something a bunch of different times, you're never gonna have the same result.
And with your sport, I know with basketball, most sports, there's a rhythm to the sport. Like, and slight variations can ruin a swing or.
Yeah.
See you.
Mr. Trout, how did you do?
You too. Hey, I'm getting ready to leave. Is everything on? something? What do you want?
Yeah, what do you, I think I'll get a fish sandwich. I can't face a cheeseburger.
Okay. Yeah, we eat those McChicken sandwiches sometimes.
Okay, anything, that's fine.
Okay, I'll get him whatever we do.
Just don't get him a drink, I don't have a place to get it home, so I can't get it home.
Okay, I'll get us something like a pie or something,
Okay.
and a drink.
Yeah.
All right, I haven't left the building yet, but I'm leaving